Hello, today we want to talk about stress and intonation. How you stress a word can totally change the meaning of the word. The better you master the stress pattern in American English, the easier your listeners can understand you. In other words, even if you pronounce each single word perfectly, you may still sound foreign and unnatural if you don't master stress and intonation. Let's get the nuts and bolts from Phyllis. Good morning, Phyllis. How are you?
Good morning, Leah. How are you?
Wonderful. Cannot wait to start our unique section today about intonation and the stress. In front of us is a quote from one of my chapter, Lamps, on page P33. Oh my gosh, I cannot say anything. And I kind of highlighted the words that I think I want to stress and pay attention to the intonation. Then I want you to help me and my audience to understand more about the importance of stress and intonation and how should we do it. Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to read my part. Music is the greatest communication in the world. Even if people don't understand the language that you are singing in, they still know good music when they hear it. By Lou Ross.
Now, one of the things that you have, there's two different ones. Intonation is emphasizing a word to get somebody's attention. So here we've got music is the greatest, and then world. If people don't understand, now the other part of it is intonation is raising your tone, using a pause before it, and raising the loudness level of it. That gets your audience to pay attention to specific words you really want them to integrate into their recall.
Okay.
The other part of it is stress patterns. There are basic rules in stress patterns within English that they're like in the word communication. Whereas in French, communication is not communication, high tone on K. It is communication. It's a high tone on O. Communication. So that's the differentiation. Even though they're spelled the same way, there is a pronunciation difference. We say shun versus the French say sion. That's one of the aspects of understanding stress patterns, because stress patterns give the meaning to the word for English speakers. Even if we say all the right sounds, if we put the stress pattern in, we would say communication, or communication. And we don't put that communication and raise that high tone, get the higher tone K, then an English speaker, American English speaker, will have no idea what you said. That high tone tells people what to listen for. I have heard other people who say they'll say people versus people.
Right.
And therefore it seems so simple, yet that's a huge, in the brain's way of thinking, in the brain, the listener's brain, that's those high tones, like in Mandarin, tones are everything. They can have the same consonants and vowels, but if the tone is not in the right place, if you don't have the right kind of tone in the right place, nobody has any idea what you're talking about.
That's very true. My native language is Chinese and Mandarin. You can say the right word, but if the tone is incorrect, that can be a totally different meaning, right?
Oh boy. In my living in Shanghai for a couple of years, and I thought, okay, I'm really working on this, and I get the tone wrong, and the look of horror in some people's faces when I would say something, I'm going, I'll say it in English. And no matter how I tried, and they just after a while they realized, you poor thing.
it's so important, like you said, stress, intonation that work together, that we really give you a speaking that is allow others to understand you. But for non-native speakers, yes, ESL speakers, it's not natural, right? You might
Right.
know all the rules. How do you know where to raise your tone properly, and which word should you emphasize? And for kids who grew up in this country, they don't have to think. Native speakers, they don't have to think. It's natural. That's program in their brain, right? For
Right.
us to learn to master the stress and the intonation, I think that's the hardest one.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you learn to kind of ice skating. I never learned how to stop. So it's kind of a tough challenge. So Phyllis, is there any like simple rules we can follow? At least we are become better.
Mm-hmm. And well, for stress patterns,
Okay.
we can pick up there are many pronunciation books out there, pronunciation manuals that will tell you where to put the stress patterns. Like anything with a suffix, which is the
Mm-hmm.
ending of a word, we have communicate, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's communication.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime there's an I suffix,
Mm-hmm.
ITY, ISY,
Mm-hmm.
ION, IAN, the syllable right before it, the tone goes high.
Okay.
So the pitch goes high. So that's one of the rules. However, you can find there are many other, you go to any bookstore and you can find these things that, they'll give you those basic rules. The other part is where to stress a word.
Mm-hmm.
Stressing a word is something that when you usually it's an adjective,
Mm-hmm.
it's a verb, it could be the noun, the subject. If we
Mm-hmm.
want to make for certain, we can say music is the greatest. Well, people then all of a sudden go, what's the greatest? Music, pause, is the
Mm-hmm.
greatest, with you put the emphasis there.
Mm-hmm.
Communication in the world. Then all of a sudden, as you raise your pitch on those high meaning words,
Mm-hmm.
usually they're the noun, a verb, and an
Mm-hmm.
adjective.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden people understand what we're talking about.
Okay. So you are talking about what I read about the content words, right?
Right.
The words that carry really, meaning, that make people to understand what you're saying without hearing the rest. So
Right.
if you focus on those as your stress, then learn the rule of intonation, such as raise your tone before I. That will help you to master the stress and the intonation pattern.
Right. Again, there are exceptions to these rules. However, again, there are many pronunciation manuals out there. The one thing
Mm-hmm.
about I love using different ones that have meaning to me. I have my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
That my focus is on helping people to expand these into connected speech. Those manuals will only take you into, reading something aloud. Yet I
Mm-hmm.
want people to be able to carry on a communication by giving a presentation, and
Mm-hmm.
we expand that farther. This is the focus. I expect my folks to be able to give a presentation, and everything works into that. We move up that ladder.
That's great. And what do you think about what are the common mistakes for ESL speakers when try to learn and master stress and intonation?
The common mistakes is that they think if they speak fast like an American, that they will sound fine. However, the focus is the critical focus is the use of thought groups. Music,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
pause, is the greatest. That's a verb phrase. That's a thought phrase. Is
Mm-hmm.
the greatest, and then greatest what? Communication, that descriptor, communication, and then where? The what, when, where. Thinking in terms of the what, you know, the action, when, and where. Think in terms of those things to use the power of pause helps you be able to get your ideas across better.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of it is if we have to go someplace and make a presentation for our work, if we have to be able to stand and deliver something, focus on the power of three, keeping in terms of, you know, you want three phrases, tell them what you're going to tell them, and be able to organize it in your brain. Keep it simple. You know, I use what they call the KISS formula, KISS. Keep it simple, sweetie.
Or they say, keep it simple and stupid. That's
Oh,
another way to remember it.
I keep it simple, sweetie, because I want, if we think of ourselves as stupid, we'll perform as stupid.
I know.
So my belief is everybody has some phenomenal ideas to give to the world, and if they learn how to use it in simple three-part strategies, then they can get their brilliance out into the world.
Very true, very true. And let me just review this paragraph one more time, read it to you one more time to see how can I do it better. Then we move into the final section and, you know, you kind of summarize the key points for us.
Okay, the last one, the gentleman's name who said this quotation is Lou.
Lou Ross.
Lou Rawls.
Lou Rawls. Yeah, you corrected me before, but like a rubber band, I went back to my old habit. Lou Ross. Yeah.
Yeah, Lou Rawls.
Lou Rawls. That's
Rawls.
one of the difficult words. L. Lou
Yeah.
Rose. Rose.
Oh,
Row the boat, right? Lou Rose.
no, almost. You got to lift your tongue up for the last part of that L. Lou Rawls.
Lou Rawls.
Yeah. It's going to sound
Rawls.
like because you've got to lift your tongue up so it'll go from into Rawls.
Lou Rawls.
There you go.
Rawls.
Raw.
Is that like a raw material? Rawls.
Yeah, raw, and then it's raw plus alls.
Raw O's. Raw O's. Raw O's.
Yeah, Rawls.
Rawls. Lou Rawls. That's why I said I need to redo my audiobook.
Activity and moving, you get raw, but to get up to that L, with continued voicing, it goes into Rawls. Goes into, you know, Americans aren't going to understand that, but in watching the tongue move through these pronunciation patterns, I can tell you where the aw kicks in.
Rawls.
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 Yeah.
Okay. Music is the greatest communication in the world. Even if people don't understand the language that you are singing in, they still know good music when they hear it. By Lou Rawls. Difficult words. And I learned the lesson. Don't write anything you cannot say it.
Well, I tell you what, then that would limit a whole lot of things. You know, it's like, okay, fine, I'm going to learn a new dance, even though I'm going to trip over my feet for a long time.
I know. Phyllis, thank you very much for the feedback. And this is the end of the section for our stress and intonation part 1. And would you mind to summarize the key points and the call for action for my audience?
Yes. What I really would like to emphasize is that stress and intonation are the most critical part. Primarily because, number one, if we don't understand where the tone is, we can say all the vowels and consonants right. If we don't understand that high tone part, then people are still not going to understand us. The second segment part of it is using the power of, you know, how we're putting an emphasis on what we want to say to the power words, you know, within an idea. Again, you know, I can't emphasize the use of pause, because what that pause does is then allow you as a speaker to say the first word with power. So if you notice, I use the power of pause to tell you to say the first word with power, and then I paused again before that word power. That allows you as an ESL speaker to not only get an idea across, it allows you to be able to reset your pronunciation so that you can get to the power phrase, the emphasis, the idea that you really want to get out to your audience.
Phyllis, and everything you share with me, I think that will help me and my audience to improve our speaking and the presentation skills in some degree. I don't know we are going to change it overnight because there are a lot of habit, right, built
Right.
up in the past years. But once you know, like you said in your word, with an educated mind, you can purposely better yourself. That's my attitude towards the learning.